of the screen there on the right, his opponent, Andrew Jessup, their team has registered 2 copies of Grixis Control and then Dredge in the Modern seeded deck that's had a bit of resurgence this weekend of its own.
Yeah, big update for Dredge in the form of Creeping Chill from Guilds of Ravnica. We'll see if we get to that one, but I think it's going to come into play in the matchup here playing against Azorius Control, where Terminus is a huge deal and having that extra form of reach can matter a lot.
Yeah, so we have Grixis versus Sultai that you were mentioning here. Now, both of these, I feel like, at their core are blue-black control decks.
Yeah, definitely. These are both decks that are bringing Thought Erasure to the table.
Yeah, something I expect to be pretty good in this matchup. They trade some lands to start. Their splash color is going to determine their mid-range threats here. For Tenjum, it's 4 copies of Nicol Bolas. And for Jessup, it's going to be cards like Vraska Relic Seeker. First play of the game was one of those Thought Erasures from Tenjum's side, was hit by a main deck Syncopate from Jessup.
That's one that you kind of want to fire off at the first opportunity you get, so that exchange makes sense. You protect your hand as well. Definitely a good Syncopate. And he wouldn't have been able to get this one, though he certainly would have liked to.
Yeah, Treasure Map from Tenjum. He's got a full 4 copies of the card in the main deck, really planning to dig in this format.
Oh yeah, Treasure Map both generates mana advantage, which can be huge in matchups like this, and card advantage over time once you get those treasure tokens, start sacrificing them to draw some cards.
And for Jessup, his first actual proactive play of the game was one of his 4 main deck copies of Nicol Bolas the Ravager. Resolves here and it discards a card. For Andrew, he'll discard an excess land.
Yeah, there's going to be quite a few lands to pitch. Both of these decks going to be relatively heavy on that. For Tenjum, he's got 26 lands. Though the real concern is getting this Nicol Bolas off the table before it can transform.
All right, well, not this turn. Andrew Tenjum does make Search for Azcanta. That Search plus Treasure Map represents a lot of value in the long term, but in the meantime, he's going to take some hits off Nicol Bolas, drops to 16. I mentioned getting Nicol Bolas off the table. What are we looking for in terms of spot removal that could deal with this?
So both of these decks are fully stocked with 4 Vraska's Contempts. That's going to be your best removal spell in terms of really anything. Tenjum also has a couple copies of Walk the Plank.
Well, this is an interesting one, Ryan. Tenjum had a Vraska's Contempt, but he went for Search for Azcanta that turn, thinking he could afford to take a hit off the Bolas, and then got hit by a Thought Erasure and no longer has a way to remove it.
Yeah, that's a good swing in Jessup's favor in the short term. Tenjum does have a treasure map that he will be transforming on this turn. The Search will help him find additional copies of Vraska's Contempt, but for now, he is going to get beat up by that Nicol Bolas a little bit.
Yeah. Now you're worried about that transform. Fortunately, on the side, Jessup did not hit land 5 that turn, so we're still a ways off the Planeswalker.
This damage is going to add up. One thing about decks playing Nicol Bolas the Ravager, they're generally not heavy on these beatdown elements. So really, once you get the Nicol Bolas off the table, you should be safe with your life total for at least a little while.
Karn, Scion of Urza from Tenjum, pluses, and it shows 2 cards. It's going to show a Overgrown Tomb and a second copy of Search for Azcanta.
Neither of those have great consequence, especially given that the treasure map's going to be transforming here. And I like that Jessup goes for the Search for Azcanta. That redundant copy is not going to really matter anywhere in the short term. Grixis Control also not really going to answer the first search. See if Jessup has brought any Field of Runes to the table. It's tough with the post-rotation mana bases, and it does not look like he has any copies.
Yeah, he doesn't. He does hit land 5 that turn in a basic island. And swings with Bolas. We'll check up on those life totals there in a sec. There we go. 4-1 from the other side. So Tenjum drops to 12. Jessup's actually just ignoring the Karn with these attacks.
Well, here's a reason for that. Vraska's Contempt for Jessup.
Okay.
Ooh, get those Ryan Overturf tokens out.
Yeah, it's been a while. All right, we get Treasure Map turning into Treasure Cove. I was thinking we could have had both our tokens there if Andrew just would have held off on the Vraska's Contempt, but just isn't playing along.
Yeah, that Karn is a juicy target for Jessup there.
Search for Azcanta from Tenjum, and now he has both Search and Cove going. He's down to 12, but a lot of extra cards on the way. Looks like he already drew something big. Tapping 6 here. We're going to see a Vraska Relic Seeker.
Yeah, that's about the best thing that he could have. 2 copies of that in the main deck. That's really his top end for his strategy. That's how it looks like he's planning to win most of his games. He does supplement this with 4 copies of the Eldest Reborn. That would have been a reasonable one to pick up there as well.
And now Tenjum is going to pull farther ahead. On Jessup's side, he had no plays that turn.
Ooh, and how about this interaction? When you -3 Vraska, it makes another treasure token.
Which actually really matters here.
Yeah, the Treasure Cove just lets him draw more cards.
A plus from Vraska, going to make a Pirate. He's 2/2 Menace. You see, yeah, the 6-mana Vraska, that ability said -3 to destroy a creature, artifact, or enchantment, and then get a treasure token.
And you're seeing some of the issue in the control mirror when it comes to game 1. Tenjum made that Pirate there, and Jessup fired off Moment of Craving.
Great.
You won't be seeing that one post-sideboard.
Yeah. In a lot of ways, this feels, to me, like more of a Jund mirror than a control mirror. You know, these decks are mid-ranging, and as a result, they're caught with all these reactive, like about 10 reactive cards each, I'd say.
Yep, and you're really seeing a lot of that with the fact that these decks are main decking copies of Thought Erasure. They're playing pretty light on counterspells. Jessup does have 3 Essence Scatter, 2 Syncopate, but that's very light permissive elements.
So with Treasure Cove, 3 treasures, and Vraska in play, Tenjum then adds another copy of Karn Sign of Urza to the table, and Jessup's going to pack it in. So game 1, our first game on the match as a whole, is going to go 1-0 for Andrew Tenjum.
As for as good as Nicol Bolas Ravager is, pound for pound, Vraska Relic Seeker, just a stronger card, and it makes sense it costs 6.
Yeah, I mean, especially in this matchup where the strength of Nicol Bolas, to me, seems that it costs less than Vraska.
Right. And it is a 4/4 for 4. It's reasonable pressure, but you saw there, Jessup gets a couple hits in, and then he's backing it up with Moment of Craving. He's not able to cross the finish line in any meaningful way.
So I'm going to assume post-board that he can back it up with some better cards. I mean, you know, when you talk about sideboarding with Jund-style decks, it's almost cliche to say board out the bad cards and board in the good ones. But in a large way, that's just what Jessup does here.
Tried and true strategy. Bad cards out, good cards in. Yeah, for Jessup, we have 3 Disdainful Stroke, 3 Thief of Sanity, 2 Golden Demise, 2 Negate, 2 Sorceress Spyglass, an Arguel's Bloodfast, a Duress, and a Fungal Infection. Quite a lot of this is going to be good here. You're going to want some number of those Disdainful Strokes, both to deal with the Vraska Relic Seeker and even Vraska's Contempt on your own threats, as well as Karn Scion of Urza. Thief of Sanity I like a good amount. This is a new one from Guilds of Ravnica. It's blue-black 1 for a 2/2 flyer. When it deals combat damage to your opponent, you pick up the top 3 cards of their library, you get to exile 1 under the Thief of Sanity, and you can cast that for the rest of the game with mana of any color, and the other cards go into their graveyard. It's pretty frustrating in Steel deck. It actually mills you pretty quickly if you're not just losing to your own spells.
Yeah.
I figure it's pretty good in Standard as well. A couple copies in Negate, those are great. This is a Planeswalker every strategy for Tenjum, so those Negates will play very well for Jessup. 2 Sorceress Spyglass, again, Planeswalkers.
Sounds great, yeah.
Arguel's Bloodfast is great for grinding, and Duress will be great for much the same reason as all these other cards.
So Thief of most of these make sense as far as what I would expect out of a mid-range sideboard. You know, thinking back to when we had blue-black mid-range last format. You know, so I would cards like Spyglass, Arguel's Bloodfast, Disdainful Stroke, Negate, I would expect all of these out of the sideboard on Tenjum's side. My question here is, does Tenjum expect Thief of Sanity? Is this... How much buzz has been, oh yeah, this will be in everyone's sideboard? For example, it's not in Tenjum's.
Right, and part of that is that Tenjum is blue is his 3rd color, and the mana is a little bit rough. But because, you know, you're in this mentality where my sideboard is just more spells, I'm trying to win with Planeswalkers, it could be something that he totally misses. And again, when you look at decks people have been playing so far in this new Standard format, there's so much variation where nothing is going to be stock at this point, so you might have to take an L to one of the post-sideboard games to figure it out. And then on Tenjum's side, he's got 4 Duress, 2 Disdainful Stroke, 2 Moment of Craving, 2 Negate, 2 Spell Pierce, a Cast Down, a Golden Demise, and a Ritual of Soot. It's a little bit more tenuous on Tenjum's side because you know you're still facing down at least Nicol Bolas. So you probably want to at least maintain your Vraska's Contempt. So Jessup will as well to answer Planeswalkers.
Right.
But the question is, do you want to reach for... You can't reach for Cast Down because Nicol Bolas is Legendary Creature. So you're going to miss on the Thief of Sanity if that comes up. I don't think you want Moment of Craving. I think you mostly stick to these Duresses, these Disdainful Strokes, these Negates.
With the way that Tenjum might sideboard, and I agree with what you're saying here, I worry he might get caught off guard by this Thief of Sanity, because the only ways he really removes it, right, are Cast Down, Moment of Craving. I guess he has 4 copies of the Eldest Reborn in his deck, and that's something that probably is staying in.
Yeah, those probably won't go anywhere, though post-sideboard, Jessup's going to be... he's going to have a couple answers. He can Disdainful Stroke or negate that. You still might see him steal a game with the Thieves.
Yeah, Andrew Tenjum, 2 copies of Assassin's Trophy. It's a card he'll keep in, but only 2. And even then, ramping, giving your opponent extra land in this kind of matchup so early in the game could come off as a win.
Yeah. Yeah, Jessup, we did not see them in Game 1, but he does go all the way up to 3 copies of Dream Eater, which is a pretty powerful card. One thing that's notable about the card to match up like this is it has that kind of mana war effect, but it is just non-land permanents, which can matter in the face of opposing Planeswalkers.
Okay, well, for those of you watching us over on Twitch.tv, thank you for joining us in the feature match area. We'll be broadcasting here all weekend, twitch.tv/SCGTour. And if you are not a subscriber, remember we do have a Twitch subscription program, so you do get emoticons and a badge if you subscribe to our channel. Also get to decide...
the quarterfinal
match, yeah.
Don't throw your opportunity to vote away.
Of course, those happen on Sunday afternoon. For our team events, we do cut to a top 8 of teams.
Expect to see a lot of sweet decks in the top 8 of this tournament.
273 teams in attendance this weekend. And this time, both players mulliganing to 6 and keeping. So we're going to resolve some scries and then get underway for our second game. One thing I do like about Jessup post-board here, well, especially if they're on mulls to 6, is that his threats do cost less, which seems like it can matter here.
It does, though Tenjum has a big edge in that department with the 4 treasure maps.
Oh, yeah, that card is great on this situation.
Right. You can get going with a much lower mana investment, and then the treasure map just helps you find lands, and if you miss 3 times, then you just have the treasures to recover.
Well, Duresses have come in out of the sideboard, so let's take a look at what Jessup has. Looks like we have a Thought Erasure, a Disdainful Stroke, a Sorceress Spyglass, a second land, and I believe that's a Thief of Hope.
That would be Thief of Hope. Yeah, so currently... he has the Sulphur Falls there, the Swamp is the land in hand, so he'll have access to his colors. He'll want to find a land or 2 here. As far as this duress goes, you wish you could just take the Thief of Sanity.
Yeah, the Thief of Sanity. So, of note here, I believe Jessup scried to the top, which actually should influence Tenjum's decision here.
Makes it feel like there's probably a land available. That's about what you're looking for.
Yeah.
There's just snaps right off the top. Second Sulphur Falls.
Does take the Thought Erasure. Actually, that's a Notion Rain. These Dimir cards, they're all spooky. they're all kind of like some vague, shadowy thing.
They have a similar aesthetic.
You're right, though. That is a Notion Rain. And here is that Thief of Sanity. It's made it through a turn cycle. Andrew cast it, it resolved, and now he's untapping with it. See if that guy can go to work.
One thing about Thief of Sanity is that, unlike some of its predecessors, you can't use it to gobble up lands from your opponent's library. You can only use it to cast spells.
And we mentioned in sideboarding about how this card might be a runaway, especially as Tenjum may have boarded out answers for it. And, Brian, that feels like exactly what's happening here.
Right. And Jessup has hit his 4th land drop, so that's going to give him access to most of the spells he can find from Tenjum's deck. So he's in a very good position here.
Yeah, here's Thought Erasure as well from Jessup. On Tenjum's side, we see 3 more lands, Vraska's Contempt and Karn.
I gotta figure that Vraska's Contempt is priority number 1 for Tenjum. As such, taking it with the Erasure is priority number 1 for Jessup. The Karn on the following turn is pretty medium, especially given that the Thief of Sanity can just try to steal more of Tenjum's Contempts.
Well, here's the thing. Thief of Sanity had the option to steal a Vraska's Contempt this turn, but Jessup chose something else, which makes me think he's got this covered.
He's got to have something real good under there.
Right, because if he sequenced that the other way, if he thought Erasures first, then he could have taken the Contempt. I mean, there's a ton of reasons here to think that this Karn's not going to resolve.
Yeah, it could just be a counterspell. Tenjum really does not want to see one of his copies of Vraska Relic Seeker cast against him.
Here's Karn. And Jessup, I guess the Karn will resolve, or is it not going to hit a Disdainful Stroke? And it will.
Yeah, Tenjum knew about that one.
Oh, yeah, we knew it was in the opener.
Saw that off the duress.
Well, Thief of Sanity is just going to go to work. Here's another 2. Tenjum down to 16. More cards for Jessup. You know, I like to play 0 creature control decks. A card like Thief of Sanity is something I hate seeing this card out of the sideboards of opponents. It's such.
Oh, you hate losing.
Yeah, I hate losing. Here is Notion Rain from Andrew Jessup.
Surveil the bones, as it were.
Yeah, 1 blue black. Surveil 2, draw 2, lose 2 life.
Jessup doing a reasonable amount of surveilling in his deck between the Erasures and the Notion Rain, but he's just playing them because they're good cards, not taking advantage of any surveil synergies this weekend.
Jessup looks like missed that 5th land drop, but he will cast a Duress, or rather he'll cast Tenjum's Duress, and see that Tenjum just has 3 lands. An opportunity for Tenjum to top deck a Planeswalker here.
Yeah, that was a interesting window for Jessup. It was either this turn or next turn he wanted to catch the Duress. That window with Tenjum going up to 5 lands the next turn, you could catch another copy of Karn, whereas if you waited until this turn, it'd be another look at catching a Vraska.
Yeah. For me, the question would be, what's that hidden card? If the hidden card is something like a sideboard negate, then I'm really comfortable playing the way that Jessup's playing it.
Right, yeah, you only have 1 mana left over. He was clearly digging for lands in some capacity with the Notion Rain.
Top cards. Again, this is the 3rd hit of Thief of Sanity. Looks like there is a Vraska and a Karn in here, so...
He took the one he can cast.
How worried are you when your opponent hands you back the 2 cards and says, I don't want this Vraska or Vraska's Contempt, I took something else?
Yeah, I mean, I think Tenjum already knows he's really behind, but you're right. That is not. Okay, right, you can isolate that, but yeah, that's the game.
I was gonna be like, what? If you're Tenjum, you have to think, what card's better than those?
Right.
I don't even know.
I was playing a draft game last weekend against one of the local players in Minneapolis, and I was just really far behind, and he was taking a little while to make a decision, and I said, hey, is your hand good? Can I just concede? that game felt very similar there.
So Andrew Jessup evens things up at 1 game apiece, and this was really what we talked about, a Thief of Sanity running away with the game. Let's go back to the drawing boards here then. Tenjum knows about it now.
Right. Though the potential answers that he has are pretty mopey, and they do exactly one thing. The answer, Thief of Sanity. Moment of Craving, cast down. That is the only role they serve. In the main deck, he's going to still have access to those Vraska's Contempts, as we saw. Those 2 copies of Assassin's Trophy. Yeah. He's
got 2 Walk the Plank in the main deck that it's possible he boarded out. That catches Nicol Bolas as well.
Yeah, if you boarded that one out, bringing that one back in, if you expect there to be more targets, that does make a good amount of sense. Though we did see Jessup doing a little bit of sideboarding as well, and that's kind of the powerful aspect of having this creature sideboard in your low creature count control deck. Do you have them? Do you not? Do you have your opponent just get stuck with some bad removal spell in hand? And even if Tenjum's bringing in these Walk the Planks, we saw a lot of Duress and Duress-style effects fired off in the matchup anyway.
Yeah.
Jessup's pretty good at defending for the Thief of Sanity.
Yeah, with so much Duress and Negate going on, those creatures really do stick or matter in this Mass situation. When Tenjum failed the removal check on it, the game warped around it.
Oh yeah, the advantage just snowballs in Jessup's favor once that Thief of Sanity starts connecting.
Some updates from the rest of our game ones that are all complete now for the Hot Sauce Games players. They take all 3 of the game ones, turned out. Matt Hoey winning game 1 of the Grixis Mirror over Noah Walker, and we have Joe Bernal's Azorius Control deck taking a game off Dredge.
I do like Dredge this weekend. It's a little surprising to see Dan Jessup playing Dredge.
So why's that?
I've seen him play a lot of Death Shadow, seen him play a lot of Teamer mid-range decks in the Standard. Dredge is really on the opposite ends of the spectrum to these style of decks. It's a difference in play style for him for sure. And we'll find out in our Standard match if players are able to keep on 7 cards. Last game we did see both players go to 6. And Thief of Sanity run away with it from there.
Looks like a keep on both sides, so we will have a full 7s for each player this time. So they go toward the deciding game. And some tap lands to start. Now looking at those threats for Tenjum. Not sure I'm going to say. We'll see Thought Erasure. We'll get a look at Jessup's hand. We have, looks like 3 more lands. We have a Dream Eater, a Nicol Bolas, a Vraska's Contempt, and then a Thought Erasure of his own.
Pretty reasonable holdings. One thing about Thought Erasure, it has a lot of raw power in the sense that you can take any non-land card, but there's not really a great way to break this hand up.
Actually, I need to correct myself. That second card from the top is not a land. That looks like a negate. Question for me, I don't know that Jessup has an untapped black mana, so while he has Thought Erasure, I don't think it's online until turn 3.
He has Steam Vents as his first land. Dragon Skull Summit checks for Mountain.
Oh, okay. So he can Thought Erasure here.
It's a synergy deck.
Yeah, and either way, Tenjum decides there's something in his own hand worth protecting. Takes that Thought Erasure.
That information can be really big in games like this. Some of the elements we've been talking about. One of the more powerful cards in Tenjum's deck is the Eldest Reborn, 4 copies of that. It's a huge breaker in mirror matches. If you can protect that, that information that you have it set up to cast it, you can get a situation where you can really leverage an advantage.
Well, Duress from Tenjum gets negated, and then another Duress takes Vraska's Contempt. It's going to leave Jessup with a hand of 3rd land, Nicol Bolas, and 2 copies of Dream Eater. That's some expensive. That's a slow one. Bolas can do work here. Dream Eater's a long ways off.
Jessup wants to draw, I don't know, exactly Notion Rain here.
That would be very nice.
Start getting some land drops.
I was saying, can I get Spell Pierced?
I think he drew his second. Oh, this is a shock here. I don't know if he's bluffing a counterspell. I wanted to say he drew a second Nicol Bolas.
So, Ryan, there are 2 Spell Pierces in Tenjum's board. So I was just thinking about that Notion Rain. Yeah, he drew another Bolas. So we got a 2 pair of Bolases and
got that Duress. I'd shock to get a Duress out of my opponent's hand.
Ooh, and Tenjum's not going to capitalize. First, not only did he miss on the Duress, oh, and here's Notion Rain.
That's a nice draw for Jessup.
Yeah, Tenjum missed land 4. Things were looking good for him, but what a turn. Andrew Jessup misses the land drop, whiffs on a Duress, and then his opponent top decks the Notion Rain.
I got to give props to Jessup for chalking there. It's certainly a matchup where the life totals don't matter, but it's really easy to make the play where you just play your Steam Vents tapped, pass the turn. Tenjum thought there was something, so he fired off the Duress.
Yeah, I mean, it suggests, honestly, because you don't know deck lists, right? Our sabotage, the count. That's just what he's Sinister Sabotage.
Yeah, it looks like a Sinister Sabotage for sure. And something that we talked about earlier in the match is Tenjum can really play well in these light resource situations if he draws exactly Treasure Map. The fact that he has missed on that is really punishing here.
Here's Karn for Tenjum. He Disdainful Stroked the first Nicol Bolas. He'll +2. That's a second Karn and a land. Now he's going to get Bolas this next turn. Yep. Or Dream Eater, one of the 2.
Right. They're fairly interchangeable on this board. Tenjum, I think 2 cards left over. So he's likely to be left with a pretty good spell at the end of casting Nicol Bolas. Yeah, go up to 3 with this Karn activation. Jessup likely wants to just jam a Dream Eater if he has a 6th land.
Yeah, well, if he had one, I'd really like it here. That card's just a huge amount of tempo. Now, he didn't draw the land, so we're likely just going to see the dragon. Here's Bolas. Gets Tenjum down to 1 card. I think you're right. With the way Tenjum's deck is built, games where he doesn't draw a treasure map or search for Azcanta do look rough.
Right. It makes sense that he's so heavy on the cards for these reasons, but you still have a fail rate.
Yeah. And it looks like that Bolas will just get the Karn that he was given.
Yeah, it makes sense. Tenjum holding on to some cards that he's had since very early in the game. Wouldn't be least bit surprised to see a Vraska's Contempt available.
Rather, Tenjum pluses again, Walk the Plank and the Eldest Reborn.
That's easy. Don't give him the Eldest Reborn.
Maybe he doesn't have the 5th land.
That's true.
Ever. Oh, there it was. Okay, and he had Eldest Reborn in his hand.
All right.
Okay, so it's going to happen either way. And this, in a mid-range fight, I love this card.
Yeah, it's such a big deal. That first stage there deals with the Nicol Bolas, and then inevitably, Tenjum gets to make a big haymaker off the Eldest Reborn of his own.
Thought Erasure from Jessup. And it's not even a great way around it, right? Jessup has Dream Eater, but I don't want to bounce that thing.
No, though if you end up in a situation where Tenjum brings back a Nicol Bolas from Jessup's graveyard, then Jessup can use Dream Eater to bounce the Nicol Bolas and then cast his own dragon on the following turn, which could be a big swing back in Jessup's direction. It's going to be something Tenjum has to think about. He's more likely to want to grab something from his own graveyard.
2 copies of Walk the Plank in Tenjum's hand. One was Thought Erasured. The Eldest Reborn plus. Jessup discarded Syncopate.
And here's another piece of information advantage, or a question of hidden information, is how many copies of the Eldest Reborn is Tenjum playing? Jessup doesn't have access to that.
Right.
We know he's playing 4 copies.
So this is a key to his deck here, isn't it?
Yes.
Karn -1 for Eldest Reborn, and Tenjum's just going to cast another one. Is that worth a counterspell? It is. It'll take the negate.
Yeah, even if you're missing on the initial Edict effect, the first chapter there, you still get 2 cards of value, and if the creature you reanimate is Nicol Bolas, that's another discard there.
Disdainful Stroke drawn for Jessup, but again, he still has those 2 Dream Eaters in hand and only 5 lands.
And Tenjum knows about them. He's known about them for some time, so has to navigate around Jessup drawing a 6 mana source, but if Tenjum just produces some counterspell of his own, then he has that. He has 3 Disdainful Strokes in his own sideboard.
And how about we get a Vraska Relic Seeker out of the yard with that Eldest Reborn?
It's a pretty good one.
7 mana activate your Nicol Bolas. Who gets the locker? And it'll go to work. We'll make some pirates. 2/2.
Yeah, nothing to destroy, but Vraska threatens to close the game really quickly just by plussing.
I've never seen a Vraska -10, but this is a board where I could actually see that happen.
Yeah. You can also win just by +2ing a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem, right? Is that while you could do that, you might as well, like, once you've drawn all these cards and made all these creatures, that seems awfully aggressive.
Yeah, you probably look at -10ing once you're at, I don't know, 14, at which point your 2/2s have probably closed the game.
Treasure map for Tenjum. Karn was plus, and it looks like the story of this game is going to be that Jessup never hit that 6th land for the Dream Eaters.
Yep.
Dream Eater's a card I'm really excited about off the spoiler. It's, you know, it's not the most finesse card, but just had enough stats that thing looked very playable. Right now, it looks like it just kind of costs too much mana. But
right. Yeah, maybe Jessup should have brought some treasure maps. A big story of this game is Tenjum did have some early mana woes, missed on his 4th land drop for a little bit there, but found that Karn basically on time to really snowball an advantage in his direction from every turn from that point on. The Eldest Reborn really just showing its power level in this format.
Yeah, and this should be a closeout for Tenjum as these pirates go to attacking. We do have the Vraska at 10. Might see a style move here where we ult it. But there's a lot of ways we're threatening to win. You know, we have this Karn going to work, a treasure map going to work.
I've played with and against Andrew Tenjum for a couple years.
He's not going to do it, is he?
He's not. He does not have any semblance of fancy play syndrome. He's not much of a -10 for no reason kind of player.
No, the reason is you're on camera, and I want to -10 this thing on camera.
You know what Andrew Tenjum likes doing?
What is it? You're going to say winning, aren't you?
Winning matches.
Yes. Look, we all have our priorities.
Accruing match points over the course of the tournament.
Sometimes you just want to... Look, you want to register some sweet cards and have them do sweet things.
I don't know. He might surprise me.
There we go. Oh. -10, and it works.
Hey, you want a match, though, so... You wouldn't expect really a moment of cravings from there, so... Relatively safe play.
So Andrew Tenjum, 2-1, is going to take the first match of this set, which means the team of Walker, Jessup, and Jessup is going to need to sweep the other two. On the Legacy table, they are in Game 3. We're going to go ahead and leave them there in that Grixis mirror as we work our way over toward Modern. Dan Jessup, this is the one where they're going to really need to work. He's already in a 1-game hole. He's going to need to win both other games. Again, any game for Joe Bernal here will end the round.
Yeah, for Dredge, you generally sideboard a little bit worse than your opponent, but I do feel like Jessup has reasonable main deck odds in this match.
Yeah, and it actually looks like they have just finished Game 2, so we're going to get Game 3 of that matchup. Typically, I like blue-white control here, or Azorius, because it has so much non-destruction-based removal. Is that still fair?
I mean, Terminus is great. He has 4 Terminus. Path to Exile is good. You get to tag 1 creature, but here's a big problem for Bernal. He didn't register any sideboard Rest in Peace, which matters a lot in this matchup. I know when you look at all these Terminus, when you look at the Path to Exile, you think you can do enough with these tools, but there's other people that are playing all these cards and also have Rest in Peace, and you see them lose matches to Dredge sometimes too.
You know, Ryan, I'm actually looking at the deck red sheet, and I think you're absolutely right here. There's another card that's really missing here for me, and that's Settle the Wreckage.
Oh, yeah. That's a huge miss in the Dredge matchup.
Right? There's none of them. It's not even like he moved them to the sideboard. They're not in the 75.
Yeah, it looks like the concession, he's playing a couple copies of Oust, and that's largely going to be combating different types of strategies. It's going to be decks like Infect, decks like Burn, where having the turn 1 removal spell really matters, but this is not that kind of matchup at all.
Without any cards like Settle, and I don't even think we have Supreme Verdict.
Nope, it's just those 4 Terminus, and he's leaning very heavily on them in this matchup.
Is he the underdog here?
I mean, I thought just in general, Dredge had big upgrades in this matchup just off of Creeping Chill. Haven't seen it played out yet, but that's my gut read. And based on the list that I'm looking at, I do think that Jessup is going to be a little favored. So
I do want to go back to this because this type of build of Azorius Control with no verdicts, no settles. Last time we cast our Modern Open, Azorius, Colonnade was the deck. There was Azorius and Jeskai everywhere, and the real thing to do was to play 2 main deck copies of Settle the Wreckage. I think we even had 3 out of some players. Mm-hmm. So Joe's not on any of that. What is he on? What matchups? Where he's given away some points here. Where's he picks them up?
Yeah, so he's playing a couple main deck remands, which is really going to shine if you expect it to be a Celestial Colonnade format, right? If you're going to play a Blue Mirror, remanding your own spell is really about the best thing you can do in the modern formats to fight counter wars. As I mentioned, the 2 copies of Oust, those are really going to help you fight against the low-to-the-ground creature aggressive decks. But yeah, Dredge doesn't seem to be on the radar. I do like moving away from the heavy Settle the Wreckage once that becomes the established version of the deck, because people are playing around Settle anyway. So you just gain that value where we even saw the last time we covered Modern, Settle the Wreckage wasn't week 1 for that technology. That was like week 3-ish, and people were already attacking with 1 creature into it, and then it was just like the worst path to exile.
Yeah, Settle the Wreckage does get worse once it's known. There are matchups like the Dredge matchup where even if they know about it, whatever, what's Dredge going to do? Not like if they're going to hit you with only one Narcomoeba and one Stinkweed Imp, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, well, what Dredge is going to do is dredge Life from the Loam and conflagrate you and Creeping Chill you out of the game. I think that,
I guess, yeah. Okay, that's exactly what they're going to do.
I think Dredge is still quite capable of winning.
Well, I like the upgrade here. Of notes on the deck registration sheet, you mentioned those 4 copies of Creeping Chill, the card from Guilds of Ravnica. In order to better utilize that, Dan has reached for some technology from a long time ago. He's got 4 copies of Shriekhorn in the main deck now as well.
Just more proactive self-milling.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking at.
He also has the 2 sideboard Assassin's Trophy. Frequently you see Dredge players with Abrupt Decay on the sideboard. Assassin's Trophy catches ley lines.
Yeah, so what he's done to move away from them, no copies of Insolent Neonate in the deck anymore.
Okay.
He's gone with Shriekhorn. That's the spot Shriekhorn took.
I mean, you gotta cut something to make room for innovations, right?
Yeah, they're similar style cards, so that much makes sense to me too.
I would not consider myself a Dredge expert, but I would consider myself an Insolent Neonate fan. So I'm personally hurt at the exclusion of the card.
I like Shriekhorn. I think you remember I tried to register Shriekhorn for a Pro Tour.
You did. It was
you got
constructed.
Yeah, you got me. You were on at that one. You got me to not do it.
Yeah,
that was good. I had a really good constructed record because my teammates wouldn't let me register Shriekhorn.
My
teammates made me play Consecrated Sphinx instead of Shriekhorn.
See, they both take 2 cards off the top of your deck every turn. One of them puts them in your hand and attacks for 4.
What was it? What's the Phoenix? Kuldotha fan. I wanted to Shriekhorn into Kuldotha Phoenixes. And then you just have Metalcraft waiting for you. It was going to be great. How would anyone stop that?
It seems impossible. It can't be done.
I'm sure Tempered Steel can't race that.
I believe Jessup on a mold of 5. Dredge pretty regularly mulligans heavily, though. We'll see what he's able to put in his graveyard. There's at least a Narcomoeba stuck in the opening hand. You never like to see that.
No, not great. Bernal, we're going to see fetch here for a Hallowed Fountain. And no, second land and a go here for Bernal. Got an Opt in hand. On 3 copies of Opt here, that's his Terminus enabler. We were seeing, I think, some Hieroglyphic Illuminations last month. He's going to get away from that fancy play. Speaking of fancy plays, Dredge does things like turn 2, cast Loam, get back nothing, go. just legitimate magic happening here.
Yeah, and even if Jessup had a Cathartic Reunion, that would probably be the play in the face of Negate or Logic Knot mana there.
And now we'll start to dredge. 3 cards. Here's the Shriekhorn and a Narcomoeba and a land. Get that 1/1 into play.
Start getting a card back with that Life from the Loam. Really just go off.
So that turn 1 shocking for Stomping Ground. If you're playing Azorius, can you read that for Nature's Claim?
You certainly can. I mean, that would be the spell you shock for, right? I can't think of anything else Dredge is trying to do at instant speed.
Yeah, I mean, Lightning Axe, but not in this matchup.
Yeah, against the control deck, right.
Yeah.
Though Bernal got him by not registering Stony Silence.
Yeah. Or Rest in Peace?
Right, that's the one. I confuse those boring white enchantments.
Yeah, the boring enchantments that in certain matchups are ridiculous.
Yeah. 2 mana attempt to win the game.
And I like how, again, Jessup's going for Loam, and it's going to get Snapcaster spell snared here. There still is a 3rd land. Last turn, actually, Jessup decided to not play it, and this turn, he'll play it.
Yeah, you wanted to maintain it in case you wanted to trigger a Bloodghast.
Okay.
The thing about it, though, is eventually Bernal's not going to be able to counter Life from the Loam anymore. He's going to run out of the ability to do that.
And Bernal's going to Path to Exile his own Snapcaster Mage, it looks like.
He does have a couple sideboard Lyra Dawnbreakers.
Well, I think I caught one of his sideboard Archangel Avacins in his hand.
Okay. I mean, that does clean up against Dredge.
Yeah, that might actually be good here, huh?
Yeah.
That's a card I haven't seen in a while.
Can be a little bit tough to make your Avacyn transform, considering he has 4 creatures in his main deck and he just pathed one out of the way.
I mean, if Jessup attacks, do you think he's expecting Archangel Avacyn to ambush Narcomoeba?
Probably not. I don't know if it's a huge concern. The concern is when the Avacyn starts cracking back. That's the problem.
And a second Narcomoeba for Jessup. He'll swing with 1 and does the... Yeah, there we go.
Ooh.
Shadows over Innistrad.
Good on the director for getting that face cam. Dan Jessup's reactions to that's the best.
I was looking like, huh.
Well,
okay. I like the look where he turns to his brother and gives a slight eyebrow raise of, yeah, that happened.
Were you here for that?
Did you saw that, right? I was just checking in.
Oh, that was nice. Now he has the option between trying for some more loams or just casting Stinkweed Imp, and he does kind of want to block. He had milled over a Faithless Looting as well.
Yeah.
Though there were no other dredgers in the graveyard, he gets to pitch the 2 that were already in his hand.
Okay, there's Bloodghast. And Stinkweed Imp. Okay. So he's got Bloodghast. That can come back. He'll have Stinkweed Imp. For next turn, he'll have that dredge set up. There's a lot to like.
And something that I'm curious about, my initial assumption would be that in matchups where you want to sideboard heavily, and you see Jessup with the Nature's Claim in hand, 3 copies of that of the sideboard, possibly reach for the Assassin's Trophy as well. I want to say that the Creeping Chills are the first card that you sideboard out.
The way this match is going, where Bernal's still at 18, it makes sense that Creeping Chill would not be here or there.
Right.
One thing I do like, and they're going to shake hands, which means Matthew Hoey is, I'm going to believe, was victorious on the Legacy table. Dredge actually sometimes had some tough times could have tough times with a Burn matchup. That card seems like it'd be incredible against Burn.
Yeah, that's a huge deal. You not only hit them for 3 to advance your clock, but you gain 3 life.
Yeah. We will confirm that was not a concession from Dan Jessup, but rather a victory for Matt Hoey. And either way, I don't like Dan Jessup's situation on that match either.
Yeah, he was making a lot of pretty desperate plays. He wasn't doing anything that was really at the height of the power level of Dredge. Sometimes you end up in a situation where you are doing powerful things and your opponent breaks up what you're doing with some kind of graveyard hate. But what happened there was Jessup's deck really didn't do much of anything. Bernal had a ton of breathing room, just got to start casting all of his spells.
All right.